Welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here because, honestly, we're about to embark on a truly fascinating physiological journey together. We spend so much time searching for these incredibly complex solutions to our health questions, but today, we're going to look at the sheer power of simple, natural habits. We're going to break down the incredible science behind an everyday, ancient practice. And I promise you, by the time we wrap this up, you'll never look at your body's sensory responses the exact same way again.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The entire premise of our explainer today rests on one incredibly simple question. What exactly happens when you chew 2 cloves before going to sleep? Now, on the surface, it sounds almost too basic, right? Kind of like an old wives' tale. But we're going to pull back the curtain on this specific ritual. As you'll see, your body is constantly communicating with you, reacting in real time to the absolute simplest of inputs in profoundly complex ways. To really grasp how this works, we need to break it down chronologically.
So, let's start with phase 1, the sensory spark.
Let's start right at the beginning. This is where our interactive experiment kicks off, and it is all about an immediate, undeniable sensation. Imagine actually doing this tonight. The steps are super straightforward. You take 2 small cloves, you pop them in your mouth right before you're ready to hit the pillow, and you just chew them gently for, say, 20 to 30 seconds. Now, if you were to do this, pay very close attention to what happens within mere seconds. You aren't just tasting something. You are triggering an event. Imagine this intense burst of aroma filling your nasal passages, a sudden, almost unexpected rush of saliva pooling in your mouth, and a really distinct warmth spreading right across your tongue.
Now, that intense warmth and tingling you're imagining, I want to be perfectly clear. That is not your imagination playing tricks on you, and it certainly isn't magic. It's real-time biological chemistry happening right there. Cloves contain a highly potent, natural active compound called eugenol. The very second you start chewing those cloves and releasing that eugenol, you're immediately stimulating millions of sensory receptors scattered throughout your entire mouth. You're effectively flipping a switch and waking up your oral sensory network.
And here's where it gets wild. That network is wired directly to your brain. Specifically, the eugenol is activating branches of your trigeminal nerve. Think of this as a major cranial nerve, a massive biological superhighway responsible for your facial sensations and your oral sensory awareness. That explains the rapid warming and tingling sensation you feel almost instantaneously. It's an incredibly interactive experience because you can actually physically feel your nervous system responding to the input in real time.
Moving right along to phase 2, the biological gateway.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how we need to shift our perspective. We so often think of the mouth simply as a place where food goes in and where our teeth live. But biologically speaking, it's literally one of the most vital front doors to your entire body. Inside, there's an enormous, bustling microbial ecosystem. We're talking about diverse bacteria, active enzymes, constant immune system surveillance, a rich blood supply, and incredibly dense nerve endings. All of these elements are interacting nonstop. When this delicate ecosystem gets imbalanced, you feel it, whether it's through odor, irritation, dryness, gum discomfort, or just that gross, stale feeling a lot of us experience when we wake up.
And the ultimate guardian of this ecosystem? Your saliva. There's a really common misconception here. The myth is that saliva just kind of keeps the mouth wet so we can speak and swallow comfortably. But the biological reality? Saliva is an absolute workhorse. It actively buffers harmful acids. It washes away lingering food particles. It acts as a literal shield to protect your delicate oral tissues. And it fundamentally supports the balance of that complex oral microbiome we just talked about.
But here is where we hit a critical nightly vulnerability. While you sleep, your natural saliva production drops significantly. Basically, your primary defense system powers down. And when saliva decreases overnight, odor-producing bacteria suddenly have a much easier time thriving. This is exactly why morning breath happens, even for people with impeccable brushing habits. Traditional generations actually understood this intuitively. They utilized the intense aromatic qualities of cloves, not just because they tasted interesting, but as a deeply rooted ritual for oral freshness and to actively combat that nighttime bacterial bloom.
Which brings us to phase 3, the brain-gut connection.
So, we've talked about the immediate sensations and the local ecosystem of the mouth, right? But now, as we travel deeper into the body, we encounter a crucial shift in how we understand our own digestion. The common belief, pretty much what most of us were taught growing up, is that digestion starts in the stomach once the food actually gets down there. But the biological fact is entirely different and honestly, a real game changer. Digestion actually begins in the brain.
Long before food ever reaches your stomach, your nervous system is already prepping for it, based entirely on the signals it's receiving from your mouth.
And this brilliantly illustrates a phenomenon known as the cephalic phase response. It's this fascinating brain-to-gut communication pathway. It's almost like hitting the preheat button on your oven. Because cloves possess such a uniquely strong aromatic and sensory signature, the moment you taste and chew them, your brain sparks into action. The conversation starts, salivary glands activate, and digestive readiness kicks off throughout the entire gastrointestinal tract. Your stomach is actively preparing for incoming food, solely based on the intense sensory input happening up in your mouth. Now that is powerful, undeniable physiology at work.
All right, let's step into phase 4, long-term cellular defense.
Up until now, we focused heavily on immediate reactions and overnight digestion, but we absolutely cannot ignore the long-term, microscopic health angle here. Let's think about your gums for a second. Most folks view them as just passive, pink tissue holding our teeth in place, but in reality, they are living, highly vascular, neurologically active tissue. They're jam-packed with tiny blood vessels, intricate connective tissue, sensitive nerve endings, and immune cells conducting constant 24/7 surveillance. What happens in this tissue matters deeply to the whole operation. An imbalance here doesn't just cause a localized irritation, it directly impacts that major front door to your entire body.
And this is exactly where the specific makeup of cloves provides an amazing benefit. Cloves are packed with naturally occurring plant compounds called polyphenols. These compounds have been widely studied for their impressive antioxidant activity. Basically, they play a potential role in helping our bodies deal with oxidative stress, which is essentially a chemical process heavily linked with cellular wear and tear over time. So by introducing these compounds right at the biological gateway, you're actually supporting that active gum tissue with targeted, long-term cellular defense.
Let's wrap up the sequence with phase 5, the full timeline.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the tips of our nerves all the way down to our digestive tracts and cellular structures. Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds, step by incredible step. At 0 seconds, the physical chewing begins. By 20 seconds, the eugenol has sparked that massive nerve and sensory activation. Boom, you feel the warmth, the tingling. Then, as you sleep overnight, the aromatic compounds are working to support the oral microbiome when your natural saliva defenses are running low. And finally, by morning, because of that cephalic phase response we talked about, you may actually experience a noticeable digestive readiness and an absence of that stale oral feeling. It is just a beautifully sequenced chain reaction.
Now, of course, as with any explainer exploring physiological responses, we have to look at the practical caveats. The source provides a very clear warning, and we want to pass that along. If you're highly sensitive to strong spices, or if you currently have mouth irritation, ulcers, or simply find the taste of cloves way too intense, you should absolutely skip this experiment. The intense spice of the eugenol can definitely be irritating for sensitive tissues, so listen to your body on that one. And that perfectly frames the ultimate takeaway here. The source material emphasizes very clearly that chewing 2 cloves is not some magic fix, and it's certainly not a miracle cure. That is not the message today. The message is all about observable biology. Traditionally, cloves have been used for digestive discomfort because of their warming aromatic qualities. This practice has persisted across generations for a reason, because it proves that simple, natural habits can create highly meaningful, immediate, and noticeable physiological responses in your body.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a really profound thought from the source material that just hit the nail on the head for me. Dr. Alan Mandel states, "Your body whispers long before it screams." We spend so much of our modern lives ignoring those quiet little signals, don't we? The slight digestive discomfort, the dry mouth, the minor tingling. We tend to wait until something becomes a major, screaming issue before we finally pay attention. But those sensations? They're communication. Your body is constantly talking to you.
Which leaves us with this final, vital question to ponder. If something as remarkably simple as 2 small cloves can immediately trigger your entire nervous system and jumpstart your digestive readiness, what else is your body trying to tell you throughout the day? I challenge you to stay curious, start paying a little closer attention to those quiet sensory whispers, and marvel at the incredible responsive machine that is your own body. Thank you so much for joining me on today's Explainer. Keep learning, and as always, stay fascinated.